Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle, and thank you for joining us at www.sonic-cinema.com. Over the past 10 years, I've gotten a lot of emails from filmmakers who have wanted me to watch their movies and then give them reviews. It's something that I've come to embrace over the past several years. It's something that's really add a lot to my experiences as a moviegoer and as an individual as well. A lot of these movies are movies that I would consider favorites. Some of my favorite films of all time, maybe even some of my best. And they start off slow, about a movie, an email here or there from filmmakers from 2006 to 2008. In 2009, though, they basically started a pretty regular clip and it's been going that way ever since. One of the filmmakers that I got an email from in 2009 was Princeton Holt, who's a director and producer out of New York and One Way or Another Productions. And he has produced with his writing directing partner, Brian Ackley, a science fiction drama called Alienated, which is currently enjoying limited theatrical release in preparation for a video-on-demand release this coming week on March 31st. I took the time this afternoon to talk to Brian in Princeton, and this is the first of what I hope will be many other interviews with filmmakers like them who have asked me to review their movies over the years for the podcast. And so I hope you enjoy. I'm joined today by writer-director Brian Ackley and producer Princeton Holt. They're responsible for a film called Alienated, which is getting a limited theatrical release alongside a VOD release. Thank you very much for joining me, guys.
Thank you, Brian. I'm really glad to be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so the first question I really had to wanted to have for you guys is, how did you two meet, and how do you start working together?
That's the same. We have the same answer for both of those questions because we met for a project. We had a mutual friend named Roy. He was a cinematographer, and I went to Brooklyn College with him. And Princeton, of course, fill in any of these gaps. But in a nutshell, basically, Princeton was looking at a certain camera to look in a film, a short film with a particular camera. And Roy had worked with that same camera on the film that I did with Roy. And so he showed him that film to see the look of it, see what it looked like. And then Princeton ended up liking the film itself. And you can tell your version goes.
No, you're right. No, you got it. I did. I was like, wait a minute. I'm sucked up into the movie. I wasn't even looking at the camera anymore. And then I saw Brian. Brian directed it, wrote it, directed it, and he started it. And it just so happens I was making a short film, my first short, at that time, and I was looking for an actor, and I was blown away by his performance in that film. And I asked Roy. I said, "Yes, I love the camera. I like the sound setup. It sounds good and all that." But Brian, he acts. I mean, he directed this? I don't know if he would act. And I'm looking for an actor. I don't know if he would act and it's somebody else's movie. And he goes, "No, he acts as well." So he put me in touch with Brian. And Brian and I met, showed him the script, and from that, I cast him in a short film called Fish. And from that day forward, we just collaborated on both levels.
Yeah, we just started having some great conversations after that, and then that eventually when your feature came up, Princeton, that's when I was thrilled that you were considering me, and that's how we got connected.
All right, and so when you guys started up on One Way or Another Productions, when exactly was that?
Well, the company had been in existence for a long time. years and years. Let's say probably about 4 or 5 years before Brian and I met. And I'd say really more about 4 years before Brian and I met. And it wasn't, it was just an emblem. It was just an emblem where we made films under. And then when the first feature came, I cast Brian again in a supporting role in our first film, Cookies and Cream, which you saw.
Yes.
And reviewed, thankfully. And then it was the pushing, it was the advertising of that film. Well, first of all, it was the fact that Brian was doing more than just acting in the movie. He was doing everything, helping us with, with filming and everything, because he's exactly the production went through its share of struggles, especially first features will do that to you. Films are hard enough to get made, when you don't have any money to do it. They're even harder. So the production of it dragged on and on. There was a laborious process. But I was invested. I was very much invested with this. Which making a feature film, how exciting, So I jumped in as much as I could to help out.
Excellent.
And that Cookies and Cream it was a nightmare. And it went too long. It was sporadic. It was off and on because we couldn't afford to pay the actors, so we had to do it around everybody's work schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And it dragged on, and then everything. The pulse was crazy. It was all tough. But Brian was there the whole time. And then so to transition, this would be a good segue. What happened is right after the film was over, we did Uptown. But Brian approached Uptown because he approached it from a production standpoint by seeing the mistakes that we made. Said, well, what if we didn't use lights? What if we just use lit locations and we could shorten this production schedule down for this one? And he found a way. And
we went from 6 months from shooting a film in 6 months to 9 days.
I don't even think it was that. I think it was like 5 principal days, and then we did 3 pickup days. Yeah. And that then turned into, that's where we started collaborating as a company, because the way we worked together was just so seamless in a way, and so productive. We felt, and the marketing of it and the way that we pushed it. And Brian was so instrumental in pushing those, helping us push those first 2 films, that we were like, well, let's partner up. And let's just partner up. Let's do this whole thing. And then the partners at the time, Jenny and Monica and Crystal at that time, were all supportive about it. And so we brought Brian in with us, and we've been working together ever since.
Wow, it's funny listening to you guys talk about the fits and spurts as far as making Cookies and Cream. Actually, it took me back to when I tried to make my own short film about 10 years ago, and I had no money. It's like we were just friends trying to make a short film together, and basically it was just like one day a month basically of shooting, where we would just like on weekends, and I mean the continuity is a nightmare, but I mean just that whole idea of not really having enough money, not being able to just do it the way it should be done, and just trying to get something done.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
I think that I still tell people that I think that's a good method. If you don't have money to go shoot continuously, I still think that weekend shoot, and in your case, even you were doing by the month. That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I still recommend
you have to do what it takes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I still recommend it if you can't do it any other way.
Right. Switching gears slightly, I do want to come back to Cookies and Cream and Uptown a bit, but who are some of your biggest influences as filmmakers?
I'll
go first, Brian.
Oh. Well, there's one that I know Princeton and I have in common, or at least we did for a while. I don't know if it still stands, Princeton, but I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan. And I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days, doing different interviews. With some of the filmmakers that I really respect. P.T. Anderson is very high on the list, and also Ethan Cohen. Ethan and what's his brother's name? Joel and Ethan Cohen.
Yeah.
The reason I love these guys is because, and I don't always love the films that they make, which is amazing, but I respect them so much because they're always doing something different. Mm-hmm. They make something, it either works or it doesn't work, for my case anyway, and then they do go off and they do something completely different. And I think that's just amazing. And, obviously their skill level is masterful because they each create, within their films, they create these wonderful imaginative worlds, like very unique. And their characters are just stellar. They are just stellar. And for them to kind of just to bounce from whatever project to whatever project they have in their minds, and just redo it, from a creative point of view, I think it's amazing. So yeah, definitely those two are at the top of my list.
I early on I was influenced by the mixture, the marriage of sound, music, and image. That's really what got me into paying closer attention to film in general. I was fascinated with that marriage and how people edited the music to their images and vice versa. And so it started to stick out for me really early on in films that I saw Spike doing, Spike Lee. But it kicked in also by the time I got around to watching the Zemeckis do Forrest Gump, I started paying attention. But when I saw Pulp Fiction, it was perfect. It was perfect. Like this guy.
Yeah.
I thought what Spike was doing with images and music was incredible, and it is. I mean, I could put some Spike scenes up against right next to some Tarantino scenes, and you'll be misty-eyed on both accounts. Mm-hmm. But Pulp Fiction just took it to a whole other level for me, and I was stuck on those movies. I think that's the first time that I was stuck on a movie, like watching it, thinking about it constantly, and nothing had affected me like that to that point. And then it was 2000. It was 99, and this plethora of great stuff was coming out. You guys remember the late '99 when American Beauty dropped. Being John Malkovich dropped and Magnolia dropped, all at the same time, like in the same season. It was unreal. That really had a big effect on me. But by the time I saw, and American Beauty did it too. American Beauty did a great job at it. But when I saw Magnolia, that made me think about doing it myself, and that's how I started.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned.
After that.
Well, and it's funny
what was that?
It's funny that you mentioned the combination of music and images, because I mean that's something that when I watch certain filmmakers, that's the same kind of excitement I get. And it's the way they combine those. Tarantino obviously is a great example. Paul Thomas Anderson. It's interesting. I've never really heard Zemeckis in that way, but especially something like Forrest Gump, you can definitely tell that there's a very specific idea as far as using those specific songs in that context, and then you have the orchestral music. It does just it elevates that experience beyond what it could be.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. And Forrest Gump, with Zemeckis, you don't see that. You don't see it done that way. Mm-hmm. He had a soundtrack for Forrest Gump. If you remember, there was a whole, I think it might have been a double disc.
It was.
I think it's double disc.
Yeah, for the soundtrack. And I love Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is up there. I put Forrest Gump is on my list of top 10 screenplays ever, right? Along with Pulp Fiction, of course. Those are, and Malkovich. So those all came out around that same sort of. Yeah. That's on my list. But my point is, the mixture of marriage. You can even see it if you there's a difference between one of the differences between Brian's features and my features are the music. I'm heavy on music usage. he's strong on mood. So he'll set that mood, and if that mood needs to be that these two people are there trapped together, you having this moment, whether it's an awkward moment or an uncomfortable moment, he's comfortable with you being uncertain until you get into the story with that. And on mine, you'll notice that Cookies and Cream has a lot of music in it, tons of music.
Mm-hmm.
And in my follow-up feature, 10 Commandments of Chloe, is wall-to-wall music as well.
Right.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
That one, Brian.
Yeah, I have it.
So you did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll notice that you'll notice that the filmmaking. You might find more filmmaking styles when it comes to similarities in our filmmaking styles when we direct. When it comes to the way we get performances, I think you can see some similarities there. But in terms of the atmosphere, you can tell that I'm fascinated by music, and I use a lot of it in the films I direct.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the films that you guys have done. I mean, the first time I talked with you, Princeton, was when you emailed me to review Cookies and Cream, and then it's funny. I figured I was just going to get Cookies and Cream, and I also ended up getting Carter and Uptown as well. So it's like, oh wow, 3 movies I get to review. But I want to talk about those.
3? So we sent you 3?
Yes. Yeah, you send
awesome.
Carter as well. So Carter and Uptown
as
well.
We put you to work. Right?
But while I've got you guys here, both Cookies and Cream and Uptown they're still 2 of my favorite films I've had a chance to screen that filmmakers have sent me. So I really appreciate it. And they're still movies that I remember fondly.
Wow.
How would you guys say that you both have grown as filmmakers since then?
I don't know. I don't think I have grown enough because this is I haven't done enough. I'm still learning and trying to get used to the things that I do know works, like just in conversing with actors and understanding an actor's perspective and communicating with actors. I just want to do more of it. So I don't know. I wouldn't be able to define how I've grown or what I've learned because I'm still growing and I'm still learning, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I think I have grown from that. I think we both have. We've grown from that, and you can just make it. You can just point to the basics: production, value or quality of the image. I think for me personally, I've gotten better at directing actors and working with actors. And I think that I did notice and for myself, I noticed I'd say for both Brian and I definitely say for both Brian and I, there's a different, you can see the growth in terms of visually between the first and second feature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's that, and then collectively as producers, we definitely are thinking more about an audience.
As producers, we're definitely growing.
Yeah.
Or we have grown, I should say, yeah.
Yes. But I bring that into directing. I definitely I'm aware of that in the directing. You can't really tell in my follow-up. My follow-up feature was not to be, it was a personal thing, so I was not thinking about an audience really.
Mm-hmm.
But my next one that I direct, I'm definitely thinking about an audience, and hopefully after that, and I can say, I'm assuming you're thinking that way as well, right, Brian? Or are you? Is that more producing?
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of taking responsibility as a business person, wanting to be able to please, an audience. I want to be able to engage an audience, but not just terrify them, but or make them feel uncomfortable. I want to engage them in all ways. So, I'm definitely feeling the same way you are. I am.
Well, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get to the film that you guys are out promoting right now, Alienated. One of the things that I liked the most about was how the sci-fi elements fit into the emotional themes of the story. And basically, where did the idea for the film come from?
Oh, great question. Yeah, we kind of bounced things around, but initially the seed came from an idea that popped in the Princeton head. As he told me, in a nutshell, he basically posed the question: what would you do if you saw a UFO in the sky, right outside of wherever you live, and what would you do with that information? How would you tell whoever you're with, or would you tell them? And so that was kind of the seed that I kind of took and kind of played with for a couple weeks, just kind of sat with it until I realized, there's a story here. There's something that you could play with. I created the character to be a conspiracy theorist, and suddenly that kind of excited me because that would give his wife an opportunity to not be interested in what he has to say. If he's already, run the gamut on strange, activities, so suddenly I found a really nice, solid conflict that excited me and that I could play with.
Yeah, that Brian took it and ran with it. We have a lot of ideas, Brian, that we literally write them down.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll write them down, and we keep log lines. At some point over the last few years, we started developing and keeping a log line list of things that would work because we were noticing that sometimes the log line alone could sell a movie. It could definitely can go, but sometimes the log line alone can sell a movie or get a project through into production. A lot of times, if you're looking for financing, et cetera. So. There would just be a couple of times where I would be somewhere driving or out somewhere and just look up, and I notice how dark it was. And I think that maybe this particular log line popped into my head because it was just like, wow, you know what? If aliens existed where I'm at right now in the middle of nowhere, I should have seen something. You know what I mean? So it started I was being sort of being skeptical about it, and then I thought about, and then that sort of developed into, but what if you did see something in the middle of nowhere? What do you do with that information? And I thought that and that's where the idea began to develop. I just thought it would be cool to do a sci-fi drama. I feel like Brian and I, drama is something that as directors and writers that we're comfortable with. We've both done two, so we've both done two back-to-back dramas. So it's a space that, especially when it comes to directing actors as well, that I'm comfortable working in and Brian's comfortable working in. And so I felt, wow, we can sort of frame a nice drama around the tension of a guy seeing something and introduce those sci-fi elements, but make it be more about psychologically the fear or psychologically the information of not wanting the person to think that you're crazy for saying that you saw, for telling them you saw a UFO. That was pretty much it. It was really more about the tension that what I was thinking early on. It was just a log line, but in my head, and I didn't articulate this to Brian, but in my head, it was more about the tension of revealing what you saw, and then the house reacting to it. And I thought that the characters in my head were older, like an older man, 50s or 60s, had a wife maybe, he was probably a grandfather, had young grandchildren or something. That was it, like maybe a retired guy or something like that. But I didn't give that information to Brian, and I'm glad I didn't, because and he had to find the conflict within the story for himself. And in searching for the conflict, no story is there without a conflict. He found, well, what would make a guy not believe his life? What if he's a conspiracy theorist who cried, like the boy who cries wolf all the time?
Right.
When I when he first sent me the script, I didn't know what to expect. When I finally, I said, which one do you want to do? I think this one really, we can do this. We can do this for the small amount of money we have. I'm really pushing for this one, but if you don't pick this one, choose between these three and tell me which one that you want to staff. And that's the one he thought about it for a while, and then that's what he came back with. And he wrote it in over the first draft over a weekend. He sent me the weekend. It was over one weekend, and I think we got off the phone on a Friday, and I think he sent me this thing on a Monday, and my mouth was and so I just immediately tore into it, and I read it in one sitting, and I flew through it, and it was so raw and so honest that I did not want to tamper with the words at all. I did not really want to tamper with this. It was too honest, it was too raw, and it was too emotional for me to deal to mess with. So forget that. Oh, wow, the characters are younger than I thought they would be, or oh wow, I thought it would be more about the tension of alien sightings. It was just too juicy to tamper with, and so I just wanted to get out of the way and just let it, hey, let's go with this right here. This is pure,
Yeah, and it's funny because of the fact that, I do think the age that the characters are at in that movie is absolutely perfect. Yeah, you can sort of see it being, an older guy who, sees something in the sky, but it's important that, these two, they've been married for a few years, but they're not that old yet. And then more importantly, the fact that he is a conspiracy theorist, and that I've seen the movie twice now, and it didn't even occur to me just how important that should be as part of that character and part of why it would be difficult for his wife to believe him. And how important that is as far as that dynamic. So it's really great to listen to you guys talk about that and talk about how the basic idea of it and then just how it grew from there.
Right. He took it, and he had something else to say with it. And you don't want to, when you got a piece that you really like and you think is really great, you just don't want to tamper with it too much. We had a couple of adjustments here and there, but the core of it was still there, intact. And I really didn't want to, Brian's one of those writers where you want to get as much of what's on the page into the movie as possible.
Well, yeah, obviously I connected. Once I got going, Princeton, I did connect to that story,
Yeah.
And like you say, it just poured out, yeah.
Well, I was wondering if there was and this is for you, Brian, as the writer-director, was there a level of the film that was sort of autobiographical? Because the scene that I am thinking of in particular was the scene where Nate has done this painting, but he was planning on giving it to a friend who's a widow, and Paige calls him out about it, and he gets defensive about it, and there's this back and forth where it's like Nate is throwing back at her that, well, you haven't really taken an interest in my work. Is there a level of identification to that?
In a broad sense, there is. Specifically with that scene, it's maybe just sprinkled in, on a broader sense. As far as the film goes, much of it is indirectly autobiographical. In that it's me. Often it's me being too close to another relationship. Another toxic relationship, or there have been a few, and so I was able to perceive how I'm fascinated by human behavior, by human psychology. So when I see a conflict, of course, I'm going to try to pick it apart and study it and see that. So when I see different people in my life going through different things, I pay attention. I'm just interested, and I was able to kind of, morph a lot of these situations or behaviors and general conflict together into this story. So it's kind of it's a wildly mixed bag because there are I do have my own feelings that are sprinkled in there and things that I've personally gone through, but it's much more. I think that's in it. Just that helps with the authenticity of it or of anything that you write. I think that you need to put something of yourself into it in order for it to be real. But largely it's more indirect influences.
And it's comprehensive.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, keeping on with the film for a bit, one of the things that I know that Princeton, when you first emailed me about the film, that you made a point mentioning that one of the stars of the film is the late Taylor Negron. This was actually his last film that he did before he passed away. How did you guys, what was it like working with him, and how did you guys get him for the film?
We were introduced to him through a friend, of a friend, and then at that party, there were other people there, and all of us became friends. So Taylor was at that party, So it was like a birthday party that I was invited to. I met Taylor, but then I met a bunch of other people who are still friends of mine to this day. And Taylor was one of them. And we did not talk about Alienated because Alienated didn't exist. We were talking about, in fact, there was a short film that one of my friend John Mark that I met there was working on. Taylor was in it, and they were co-writing it together, and they wanted to talk to me about producing it. And, I was giving my notes and so forth. That never materialized. And then we thought about Brian. We thought about him for another film Brian wrote, and that didn't materialize because it got out of control financially. So we made him an offer for Alienated, and he read the script first, so it wasn't an automatic at all. He's a professional. He read the script first, and he connected to the script, and he accepted, and we were very humble. And Brian, you want to talk about what it was like working with him?
Oh yeah, it was all kinds of. It was a wild experience and all kinds of things, emotions into one because we didn't work with him for too long altogether. We shot a single day with him, and I personally met him just the day before. When we had a meeting. He invited us for breakfast at his apartment. Princeton George Cat, who plays Nate, the husband who witnesses the UFO, and myself. There was the four of us, and we were just kind of getting to know each other. And we did a little bit of rehearsing that day also. And then we were off and running. And the next morning, we picked him up from his apartment, and it began as a very strange, surreal experience because here's this veteran actor who comes. We're picking up, and this is our last shooting day. We're picking him up. We're going to drive him to the location. He comes out with a plate of eggs or something that he's eating. So this tells you how eccentric this guy is. He is in his own world, in a certain respect, and he's comfortable with himself. He wants to have breakfast in the car, so he's going to have breakfast in the car.
There's an image of Brian holding the breakfast too, because I think Taylor forgot something. And we took a picture. He's standing there holding Taylor's breakfast plate of eggs or whatever, as Taylor runs into his apartment to grab something.
That tells you right there how trusting this guy is, after just a single, we met for like 2-3 hours the day before. And then fast forward to a few hours into shooting, and he's not an eccentric at all. He's a human being. He's sitting on the living room floor eating potato chips or whatever, and talking with everybody. And wherever the discussion leads. And he's so normal and down to earth and interested in people, and he's sharing his own stories. He was incredibly funny, He had a million stories, and he could just launch them at any particular time. And they weren't necessarily long stories. He just had interesting things to say. And he was fun to have on set. But the experience ran the gamut, because I was very much intimidated with him, with his reputation, not sure how to direct him as we began. But then also I became very comfortable with him by the end of our long day because of how humble he was and how supportive he was of not only the material, which apparently he really loved. He really got the material, but he was receptive of me as a person and as a director. He was very interested in what my vision, what I wanted, what I expected, and how I wanted him to, how I saw his character, and all of these questions that actors just have in general. He was very much open to that. So it was just an incredible experience it was all kinds of stuff. It was very, it was very short-lived. I mean, that's the overwhelming feeling about it. I would have loved to work with him more. I would have loved to just sit with him and talk with him more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, his performance in all three of the performances in the movie are really great. I watched the movie again this past week just to re-familiarize myself with it before we recorded this, and I remembered how good it was, but I forgot how distinct it was, and more importantly, just how important it was to the film, and the fact that it's like, here's this guy. I mean, it sort of feels like, it's funny. I happened to read and I know you posted on the Alienated Facebook page the review the Boston Globe gave the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's like they bring up the possibility of, maybe this guy is, one of the aliens or something like that. And it's like, that's something that sort of came to mind when I was watching it again. But more importantly, this guy is, even if he's not, this guy is just basically somebody who's going to call Nate out on his bullshit. It just really understands this guy better than he even really understands himself.
The Boston Globe is that review is the most tickling thing. Man, they loved it, man. They act like they love it. For a film that they gave a low rating to, they really died. They really went into it. It's everything Brian was suddenly going for. They got it.
Oh yeah, I know.
They were supposed to feel frustrated. They were supposed to be frustrated with the characters. Yes, it's crazy that Nate wants to argue with his wife more than save the world. That's great, Or he's thinking about that more. So, I'm glad you brought up that Boston Globe piece. I mean, I don't know, man. Go ahead.
It's very clear. It's very interesting because it's clear that critic was invested in the film, and it seems like he was really much drawn into the characters to the point where he despises the characters, and that's the level of engagement. And so we're very grateful that he was able to review. He reviewed us very respectfully. He didn't like the film as a whole. His review was very respectful. But yeah, we pull out this idea that he was very much engaged because of how he seems to really not like the position that we put him in, which was very, very close to this toxic relationship.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. He's pissed that Brian goes, "Oh, how dare you do that? I didn't mean to see that. That hurts. That touched the nerve."
Yeah, that was the funniest.
I wasn't supposed to see that.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing about that review, where it's like, you did get the point of the movie, even if you won't admit that you got the point of the movie. But, yeah. Well, I mean, okay. Well,
going back to Taylor and his performance, I did some reviewing of Taylor's work, and I I found that he was so good at being a character in a movie, and somehow he's able to stand out, but he's also able to fit in. So he's able to fit into whatever background it is, and which is the role of an actor. An actor is supposed to fit into a world, and then beyond that, that actor is supposed to be relatable within whatever situation is given. And Taylor found a way. He always did this. He always fit in, which is amazing. That as an actor, you're not supposed to stand out just as a general actor, a background actor. And then on top of that, he offered something special to the role, something that was fresh and unique and alive. And so he had this dual purpose in everything that I've seen him in, which is just outstanding. And I feel like now I thought that we were just very blessed to have him in our film. But now I think that he brought just a tremendous skill. Wherever his skill came from, I think he brought that because he was the perfect actor for this role, playing this perfect ambiguity. You bring up the idea: is he outer worldly, or is he down to earth? And Taylor understood that was a question. That is a question in the film, and he plays it so perfectly. I just think there's so much skill in this man. I think he was underrated as an actor, as a performer.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason that we're talking right now is the film has received a limited release. It's currently released in Boston, and then it goes on video on demand next week, I believe, if I'm correct, right?
That's correct. We released on video on demand on March 31st.
And it got me thinking about one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys, because, based on what I know of you guys are very involved in a lot of the different aspects of the production with each film that you do. It seems like it would be easier to get a film like this out in front of an audience because of the internet, because of places like YouTube and Vimeo. But is it easier to do that? And how has the internet changed the expectations for what success is with a film in terms of distribution?
It is now easier to distribute a movie than it ever in history. It is now easier to get a film out and distribute it multiple places and widely than ever before. The trick is getting people, cutting through the noise, getting people and directing them to to those outlets. That's the trick. And so, yes, it's easy to distribute everywhere now, and fairly inexpensive. But at the same time, it is very difficult to cut through the noise and direct their attention there to go be customers and download and rent the film. And so that's why things that have been happening with Alienated have raised the visibility of the film. And so, but to answer your question, definitely it is really easy to do to distribute these things digitally now. The biggest the most important aspect of our release is not DVD and it's not even the theaters. It's the VOD. The video on demand channels and outlets are the most important thing for the release. So these other things that you do are just to raise the awareness of that video on demand release.
Well, yeah. What would you say? What would you say is? I mean, obviously, the idea of getting a movie in theaters nowadays, especially a film as small as Alienated, it feels like it's still kind of Herculean effort to get that accomplished. Especially since, I mean, we talked earlier about the fact that you guys are basically opening against Batman versus Superman, for lack of a better term. So,
because we're crazy, Brian. That's we're nuts. Who would ever open a movie on the same day in any theater as Batman versus Superman? Yeah, go ahead. I'm just joking.
Oh yeah, but like what is sort of the what is considered successful as far as in your mind, as far as getting the exposure out for the film? What is successful? Is there a certain amount of views? Is there a certain amount basically, like, as far as getting the audience that you want, what is considered successful with a movie like this?
The theatrical stuff is just to promote your video on demand release. Mm-hmm. That's really all it is. So it's definitely not the theater turnout. We opened in New York on the 19th. That was a great screening. And then we opened here in Boston yesterday, and we'll be here for a week. And then it goes to D.C. in April on the 14th, and then L.A. on the 16th of April. And this is what you do to sort of draw awareness to the fact that your film is available on video on demand, iTunes, Amazon, and all these things. You don't get outlets like the Boston Globe, like the Boston Herald, like LA Times, etc., to write pieces on your video on demand release. They mention it because it was in theaters.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's just good marketing. Film festivals are the same, believe it or not, Brian. In the grand scheme of things, film festivals are just a part of your marketing plan. But that doesn't have to be all that they are. In our case, they were a test screening for us. We used them as test screenings. We used them to engage audiences. We heard back from people. We got feedback. We learned what worked and so forth. So those are great tools to have in film festivals. But all of the theatrical screenings that we've had and continue to have are all based on getting the eyes on the video on demand, downloads, etc. So I would say that the success is the success in our minds would be the video on demand users. If they go to iTunes, if they go to Amazon, and all of this other stuff that we've been doing, and all the promotions and all the marketing was a successful effort.
And I'd like to add to that my perception, and I think we've kind of had some within our company. Our company is owned by six people, one way or another, productions, and in various discussions that we've had, I think that we've already reached a certain level of success, which is absolutely amazing. This film represents our first film being released live on video on demand. And so we've hit as a company, we've hit a major milestone that proves that all of these other things that we have been doing, they're building up to something. We're on the right course. What we're doing as a company is working. And so we have reached a certain level of success that whatever we end up doing on video on demand is just a topping. It's just like, this is fantastic already. And
right.
A lot of us have seen our films with an audience, and we're experiencing the success is when you're in an audience watching your film with an audience that's engaged, that's laughing throughout the film. It's huge. So we've all kind of expressed this kind of success already.
That's a great point. Brian is absolutely right. We already feel like we hit it. And that has been going. It's just been one great success after another. From opening up with those awards at the Chain Film Festival to begin. It just started. It started this snowball, and it just grew. It was sort of a tidal wave, and it grew to the deal with Gravitas Ventures for distribution to be put in over 100 million homes. That was we had already knocked that out. That we celebrated that. Okay. That was already there, and then we sold our foreign rights to Tomcat Films, a UK-based company that's taken it to Cannes, and then making foreign sales by territory out there. So those things, 2 different distribution deals. The third one on the table now that we should be wrapping up soon for DVD, and then the theatrical release. This is icing on the cake already. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right, Brian. I wanted to make sure.
And it's all an experiment. We're yet to figure out how far our little film can go. Mm-hmm. So we don't have expectations. We have certain goals maybe, but we're still we're open because we don't know what to expect. So in that respect, we can't fully answer your question, Brian. Because we just don't know. All we can do is continue doing what we're doing and push as hard as we can.
I can't say that I feel like we picked the lock. This is the first time I've said this in any press publicly, but I feel like we picked. I told my partners. I had a conversation with my partner Chandra the other day. We definitely picked the lock. You pick a lock. This new digital landscape is a tricky landscape, which piggybacks off your question, Brian. It's a tricky landscape. It was different than DVD when DVD was hot, right?
Yeah.
DVD. That's the first 2 films that you reviewed for us were both picked up for DVD deals, and so that's when DVD was still healthy. DVD did crash. It began crashing in 2009. In 2010, by 2010, it was dead. So it began in 2009. But so we got our deals for the DVD deals for Uptown and Cookies in 2009, mm-hmm. And then so we were there right before that thing died. We got in, and then it sort of crashed by the end of 2010. So figuring out what the new formula is for getting your work seen has taken years, and we've done a bunch of work in between that. Some stuff did well, some stuff did better than others. And we work on other projects or larger projects and so forth. But the whole process has been picking the lock, mm-hmm. picking the lock. How do you do this? How do you get through? And so it's not always just about the film. It's not only just about the film itself. It's usually about the business. Period. How do you get it seen? Who do you talk to? What distributors are good to go with? What festivals are good? Do you need it to play at Sundance? Oh, you don't? Oh, okay, that's great. To add to that, and Brian has interest from agents now. He's getting agent calls, for this. So we hit a home run. We feel like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I mean it definitely sounds like, and based on what you guys were saying, I would definitely consider it a success. I mean, I hope it does well on VOD. I hope hopefully this will help raise the exposure. I mean, one of the things I've loved about getting films such as yours and Brian's over the years is the fact that it feels like maybe if I can help, through my words to help get the word out on some of these films that most people are not going to hear about for one reason or another, then maybe that will help them get like their next film off the ground or get their, and so on and so forth. And so, I mean, I would definitely say you guys have already tasted a great deal of success with Alienated. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what you guys have next.
Thank you. You're a big part of that. I was telling Brian, before we connected your call, Brian Scuttle and I were having a conversation about, and I think I revealed to him news that he didn't know, which was that Sonic Cinema, he was the first to review Alienated. He got before it got started. I mean, you started the fire. You were the very first reviewer we got before any of this stuff. Believe me, this stuff was not in sight, okay?
Yeah.
All this stuff that's happening now, that stuff happened after the fact. That happened later. But early on, it was a quiet sort of process. And you were the first to begin writing about it. And then you shared it, and then you included it in some of your lists at the end of the year, which I always look forward to. And so that your help and people like you that write and even care and have an interest in watching these little things before, not knowing if they're going to take off or not, just out of interest, is a huge help. So we couldn't do it without you guys.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, thank you for...
That's it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for, giving me the chance to watch it. I mean, that's one of the things I always love about when I get emails such as your guys is basically the fact that it's like, I feel like I'm gaining something by being able to watch these movies, even if I don't love it as much as I did Alienated or Cookies and Cream or Uptown. I mean, I still feel like I'm gaining something as a fan of movies. Because I wouldn't necessarily get a chance to see these movies otherwise, or I wouldn't necessarily know where to look for them. So, I mean, it's something that it adds to me as not just a filmgoer, as an individual. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely, I'm grateful for you guys for including me in this process of getting the film out there.
Absolutely.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's pretty much all I have as far as our talk. I think we covered quite a few topics, and I mean, we definitely got a lot of information to work with. So before we sign off officially, if one of you wants to go through the series of when Alienated starts out.
Plugs.
Yeah. The gratuitous plug at the end of the interview.
The plug section. We're if you're in Boston, we're playing the Somerville Theater as we speak. That's in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is the downtown. It's Boston. David Square. And it's a 55 David Square. We're playing every night at 7 p.m. Till the 31st. Our VOD release is the 31st, but you can pre-order on iTunes. We encourage everybody to pre-order on iTunes now. That really helps our visibility. So pre-order on iTunes. You can search it. You'll put the name in. You just scroll right down and see it. Or any links that are provided on our social media, you can look forward to that pre-order. But we're released everywhere. VOD on the 31st. And then the movie continues theatrically in D.C. On April the 14th, in L.A. April the 16th. That's it.
The last little tidbit is you can find more information, including our trailer and specific theaters to these other cities on our website, which is www.alienatedmovies.net. And we're also represented on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook under Alienated Movies.
Okay, well, Princeton Holt and Brian Ackley, thank you very much. And this has definitely been a lot of fun.
We had a blast.
Yeah, this has been. This is, I don't know however long this has gone on, but you can tell by the length of our conversation here how much fun this has been.
Yeah.
I'm proud to have topped Sonic Cinema's interview podcast Cherry. So we're proud to be the first here, and hopefully
honored, man.
Yeah. And hopefully, other people catch on and join the conversation as well going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that does it for this episode of the Sonic Cinema Podcast. Thank you again to Princeton and Brian for their time and taking the time out to talk with me about a movie that meant a lot to them and really has taken off in a way that few filmmakers are really lucky to have. when they don't have multi-million-dollar budgets or distribution going for them. It's very difficult to get these types of movies out there. So the fact that they've been able to do so in a way that has given them a lot of success and a lot of exposure is really gratifying to see, especially as somebody who's been a fan of theirs over the years. Thank you very much, guys. It was a great conversation. I absolutely loved it. There are some outtakes that I will probably consider posting just for fun. It's part of a conversation we had before we really got into the interview. So that's it for this episode of the Sonic Cinema Podcast. This is Brian Scuttle. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you later.